YouTubers? It's me, Johnny. It's Saturday night here in Shayla, and I want to make a short video on some stuff I've been seeing online. There's a expat in Thailand. I can't remember his channel because he changed the name, but it's like a small E in expat. He's a little bit grumpy. He's not the other guy, the American in Bangkok. It's the other one, and he had a pretty good video on how things are starting to tighten up in Asia. How some, not all, but some, well, many Asian countries, as a matter of fact, are tightening up their immigration. Well, I don't want to call it immigration, but your ability to live there long term. Basically, retirement visas and tourist visas, making them shorter, making it harder to get, making it more inconvenient to get, making the costs in your time to get them much higher because of the uncertainty. And as an example, he talked about Malaysia making, I believe he's talking about the retiree visa. You have to have 4 times as much resources as you previously had to have. Now, keep in mind, I don't verify that. I don't really know if that's actually the case, but that's what he's saying. He seems pretty reliable, so I think it's true. But anyhow, Thailand, I forget what exactly they did, but they're making it harder for people to get long-term visas. And I think I think he's correct in that the Thai government's going to change their policies to make it even harder for budget travelers to travel into Thailand and stay there long-term. You'll probably still be able to get a visa, but you won't be able to do kind of the visa run like you could used to do. Now, this is all speculation, but they made it so you have to have another 100,000 baht bought in addition to what you previously needed. It was I think 500,000. Now you need 600,000. And you also still need the insurance to go inside the country. While you're inside the country, you have to pay that health insurance. And it depends what country you're coming from and all that, which has had the effect of basically killing their tourist industry, which I think most of my viewers are probably pretty aware of. And there's a lot of people saying inside Thailand, well, some of the elites, they're going to put pressure on the government to stop all this because they don't want their tourist industry to get decimated. I don't think that's the case. His view is that's not the case either. I think many countries are deciding they don't really want gringos in their country too much. He made that observation too. Just a quick thought. One of the viewers on his podcast, why do you think that was? He asked, why do you think that was? And his response was xenophobia. Basically, that's kind of, I'm not saying 100%, but I think now with COVID, it's really changed everything around the world. Many countries don't really want their country filled up with immigrants, legal or illegal. And I think this is one of the consequences long term of COVID that people haven't considered, or they think things are going to go back to normal. We're all going to get vaccinated. We're all going to hold hands and sing Kumbaya and everything's going to go back to normal. I'm of the view that's not the case. Now, I'm not as pessimistic as some. I'm somewhere in the middle. But I do think many Asian countries are not going to make it easy for you to live there long term, especially if you're a foreigner. I even say, even if you're Asian, if you're Chinese from China and you want to live in Thailand, I think they're going to make it difficult for everyone. Now, I could be wrong. We'll have to see how that unfolds. But apparently Vietnam has tightened up. Malaysia has tightened up. That's not to say you can't get a working visa. I want to make clear, that's not to say you can't get a working visa, but the ease of which you can just fly in and stay there long term is going to get more costly. It's going to require you to jump through more hoops. And the government, in my opinion, is going to reserve the right to not let you in. We're actually seeing that in Mexico right now. Well, allegedly. We're seeing that a lot of, it's true, but the reasons why Mexico's doing, I have a different opinion on that. But in Mexico, they're either not giving people tourist visas or they're giving them tourist visas that last much shorter than 180 days, which I still get them when I go across, but I don't normally stay in Mexico 6 months anyways. But and also too, in Mexico, every year they've been raising the price of entry as far as provable income. Now, having said that, if you want to send me a comment how you know all these workarounds, yes, I'm not aware of all of them, but I am aware that there are circumstances where you can just put down your income and they don't really verify it. Now, a lot of people will disagree. That's fine. I'm aware of how that works. And that I don't think will ever go away. But more and more you're going to have to comply with the rules and regulations and prove everything. And the hassle and time and money of doing all that is going to turn off a lot of people. And I do think the effect of all that's going to be, you're not going to just be able to easily retire where you want to anymore, or cheaply either. I mean, just as example, in 2018, I want to say 2018 or 2017, Guatemala had a really easy, I call it a business visa. It wasn't technically a business visa, but if you had a business sponsor you, you could come in and you didn't have to prove any income. All you had to have was a police check. Now you have to have an FBI background check, which some people don't like. You have to have provable income now, which many people don't like. And here it's even more complicated because it has to be a certain kind of income. Now you can still get an education visa to live here if you want. You could still get a work visa. Now some people say that's hard to get. In my opinion, it's not. It's just a hassle to get it. It's not really hard. It's just a hassle. I mean, I know even right now people who have them and it wasn't hard for them. My friend got it a couple of years ago and he didn't like it. And he would tell you it was a hassle, but it was just a hassle because he was in Chile and he had to go to the capital to do all that. He had to return a couple of times because some of the people in the capital don't actually know all the things you really need. And so he had to get stuff he didn't think he had to get in return. But if you follow the kind of process, you can get it. It's not something I recommend. If you were to get an education visa or a work visa in other countries, to me that would be better. Here, I don't know what that really gains you, but for some people that might be an option if that's what they're looking for, either here or in other countries. But my point is, all over the world, many countries, not all, many countries are tightening up their visa requirements to preclude people from leaving. My view of why that is pretty simple. The tax cows are leaving in first world countries, going to the developing world and other places, and where tax collection is not that easy. It's just not what it is in Europe or North America. And also, too, my other view is the reason this is happening because most first world countries, including the U.S. and Europe, are basically bankrupt. No one really wants to talk about it, but they need every tax dollar they can to keep the welfare state going, and having the tax cows leave is not good. Then on top of that, in North America and parts of Europe, the cost of the welfare state's just going through the roof, so they just can't afford to let people leave like they used to. Now, yeah, that's just my view. That's how I see it. And that you're using COVID as an excuse to really, really crack down. And like I said, they've been doing this even before COVID. Now they found the perfect opportunity to keep people locked down so they cannot leave. Now, the video I watched, expat with a small e, I just can't remember his name, but he's kind of a popular Thai blogger. Sometimes he's a little, I don't agree with him all the time, but he's pointing out how he wanted a plan B in Asia, and he still has that going, but Malaysia and Vietnam are now making it harder to get long-term visas there. Now, if you're American, you have an advantage in all those countries, but I can't even imagine if you're not American. They're just making it much, much tougher to get a long-term visa in those places. Now, his detractors saying they're going to stop doing all that and things are going to go back to normal. My opinion is I don't think they are. I don't think the people in Asia are stupid. I think they've finally decided, like people in North America and Europe, they just don't want all this legal or illegal immigration anymore. They're just tired of it. I think that's a big issue people don't want to really not just grapple with, but they don't want to accept. That's why in previous years when I made videos, I really stressed you need to get a permanent visa or temporary visa somewhere else before this, tightening up or crackdown, or whatever you want to call it, happens. And that's also why I a lot of times shoot my mouth a lot about Paraguay and Brazil. Because once you're in Paraguay or Brazil, you get your ID, and you can travel to the surrounding countries with it. And that gives you options to travel around. That's all I'm going to say. Once you become a naturalized citizen, all you need is that little card, and you can travel around. And then in Brazil's much like the U.S. and Canada in that if you marry someone or you get a work visa and you live there long enough, it just turns into you get citizenship later. Now, I'm not saying it's that easy. And I'm not saying it's not complicated in that you have to follow the steps and it happens really fast. But it happens a lot faster than, say, in Guatemala or a lot of Latin countries. You can get your passport in 2 to 3 years in Brazil if that's what you're looking for. And that's why I mention it a lot. And also, too, travel on a Brazilian passport anywhere in the first world is really not that hard. And that's not a benefit for me, but I mean, it's a passport that's recognized around the world, so you can get around it fairly easy if that's something that's important. What's more important to me is once you get your local ID, you can travel to the local countries. And I mean, after you get naturalized, you can travel around and you can, access the local countries. Now, once you get your local ID, if you're not naturalized, again, correct me if I'm wrong, this is my understanding, you have to show the passport of whatever country you came in on. They'll let you through. Now, as an American, that's no big deal. But if you're from Africa or Asia, you just show them your African Asian passport and they let you go through. But anyways, but again, once you get naturalized, you can get access to the surrounding countries. And that's the same here in Guatemala. So that's why I always say go to the country that's easiest for you to get citizenship or residency. And also, too, if you can, try to get it where you can have access to surrounding countries if you don't really want to use your passport to travel. Now, in Central America, as I'm sure the viewers know, traveling around without documents isn't really impossible. But anyways, that's not the point of the video. But getting back to the guy who made it, expat, that's what he calls his channel. I keep forgetting what it is. But anyways, he's really, really bummed that Asia is now restricting. And his opinion is they're going to restrict even more after the new year. And I actually think that's a possibility. I'm not saying it's guaranteed. I'm just saying it's a possibility. And one of the countries he thinks is not going to crack down is the Philippines, which I agree with that too. That could happen, but I don't see it happening. So, but Malaysia, Vietnam, Thailand are making it harder. I think Cambodia is not, it used to be easier, now it's harder. But I do tend to agree with them that going now and in the future, even Cambodia doesn't really want a bunch of foreigners coming in and messing things up. Now, that's their perception. I'm not saying it's right. There's different views to that. But the days of the, white people just going to these countries really easy, I think are limited and numbered. And you better have a plan B if you really want to get there. And for most of you guys, I say, guys, you're going to get married to someone local, and that will be your ticket in there. If you want to live in a country that maybe does not really welcome you there. Now, it depends. It just, this could all change. I right now, I don't think it is. I think the trends have been leading up to this. And I think COVID was just the event that triggered it. This was just a triggering event. I also think that this is true all over the world. Like Europe and North America, United States and Canada are just tired of all the legal and illegal immigrants coming. And I'm pretty neutral on that. I realize there's arguments on both sides, but my opinion is it's going to be harder and harder to legally immigrate to a lot of places. And because a lot of the world is I'll just say it, a shithole, people need a plan B. I don't really think the U.S. is a shithole myself. I think it's one of the best. But I mean, I'm an American, so I'm going to say this, but it's one of the better countries for economic freedom. Now, having said that, I recognize economic freedoms are diminishing, but you can still own guns in certain states. You can still run a business, especially an online business in a small community, or a business in a small community, an online business, and you can make moves there. You can make money there. America is a place where you can get an unsecured line of credit, even if you're an immigrant. You can get a secured loan to a car really, really cheap. There's not very many countries where you can buy used cars as cheap as the U.S. And the United States is one of the easiest countries to get any kind of job, get a car loan, start accumulating capital, and things like that. Now, I think the downside of the United States is it's getting to be more and more regulated. It's more and more taxed. And in my opinion, if you gain a lot of capital, you're so restricted with what you can do with it. That's my beef. You're so restricted on what you can legally do with it that I would just prefer to live in another place. And now with the world opening up with cryptocurrencies and the online world, you can earn money working online. So even if you're only making 15 or 20 bucks an hour, you can just live in a developing world with a much lower cost of living, accumulate more and more savings, deploy that however you want and do what you want. So anyways, that's something to think about. Asia kind of leading the trend on cracking down against foreigners legally living there. Especially, I want to stress this, from what I can tell, they especially don't want retirees. They're making it so only the wealthiest of retirees can get there. And I think that will stay. But if you're not going to meet that requirement, or let's say you can meet it, but you just don't want to jump through all the hoops because they're restricting what you can do more and more in these places. I get it. I get it. But unless you meet those requirements and then can keep meeting those requirements, and that's another thing that viewer, the guy making the video said, even when you get a retiree visa in Asian countries, it's usually renewable every year. And if they just don't want to renew it, you just have to leave. Whereas in Latin America, that's usually not the case. Like I have a long stretch where I don't have to do nothing, and I can renew real easy, and I have the option to get naturalized and all that kind of stuff. So to me, one thing, the benefit of the Americas, like say Canada, United States, Mexico, South America, is once you become a resident and naturalized, you're just like everyone else. I stress that especially in a place like Brazil. And I would even say more and more now, even in a place like Mexico, once you become part of, well, there's just a lot of moves you can make in Mexico, even if you're a tourist. I don't want to get into that, but you can make, I hate to say that, you can make a first world income in Mexico if you're not really too dumb. Now, there are people who will want to, that's fine. But if you have average intelligence, you can make a first world income in a place like Mexico. And it's not as easy to do that in, say, Central America, in my opinion. You still can, but it's just not as easy. In a place like Mexico, it's more like the U.S. You can make moves, get paid. You can send your money anywhere in the world or whatever the hell you want to do with it. And you can spend it in ways you can't really spend it in the U.S. without attracting the wrong attention. So that's why I like Mexico. A lot of people disagree with me. That's fine. It's why I specifically like Mexico, Brazil. Again, I haven't been there, but from all the research I've been doing, you can make moves in Brazil just like you can in Mexico. The difference in Brazil is they have a lot more financial regulations, and they got a lot more, certain things cost more down there. So like imported stuff, which you don't have as much in Mexico and Guatemala. But other than that, you can go there, make enough money to get by, put some money to the side, buy real estate pretty cheap. Again, it depends where you're at. And, oh shit, there goes Mike. Anyways, sorry about that. Anyways, I just wanted to just say, like, from all my research in Brazil, you can do those things, and it's just the financial regulations there are a little bit more difficult to work around to get your money offshore and all that kind of jazz. But it's not impossible. It's just a little bit regulated for me. But if you get paid outside of Brazil, you want to buy real estate, or that's one thing. But if you have part of your income coming offshore anyways, then it won't really matter. You just have your, compartmentalize what you got in Brazil, whatever you got offshore, that would be another thing. And then there's the workarounds with like cryptocurrencies you can do that I don't want to say too much about, but it's very regulated. But a place like Brazil, like with crypto, there's ways you can around that, in my opinion, that are flexible and very easy to do. And I'm not telling anyone to break the law. I'm just saying, talk to your accountant, talk to your lawyer, and figure out a way around all that. That's a concern to me because I'm doing more and more stuff in that regard. So anyways, that's it for this evening. Like, share, leave a comment, and tell me what you think. Thanks.